What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. This here's Legitical Response. Now, I covered an article, I think it was yesterday, maybe the day before, I'm not 100% sure, talking about Arizona's proof of citizenship law that the Biden administration is fighting against to try to stop. It's like, what's going on here? They were supposed to bring it to the Supreme Court. Well, the Supreme Court made an emergency amicus brief, and they made a decision on it today, as a matter of fact. Check this out, y'all. That is right. Supreme Court permits Arizona proof of citizenship law to register to vote, but not for mail-in voting. Now, that's not the story I'm covering this afternoon, but we're covering very similar subject matter, and I just wanted to throw that out there because it's an update to a story I covered yesterday, and I can just hit that right quick, get y'all informed right fast before we hit it up for this one today. As a matter of fact, let's go ahead and get right on into it because, once again, like I said, similar subject matter here. Check this out, y'all. This is amazing. Texas AG opens investigation into reports of organizations possibly registering illegal migrants to vote. Now, what? No. Not possible. As a matter of fact, from what it looks like, it's confirmed. From what this story reads and how everything reads, I read the first few paragraphs. So, once again, here we go. Kind of getting the news as you are. But from what the first few paragraphs state, yeah, they're absolutely doing this. Ken Paxton is going hard in on this, and, good for him, right? Like, Texas, you can't vote as an illegal immigrant. Like, I don't understand why, like, places like California, New York, and these places, they try to pass, and in some cases have been successful in passing laws to let criminal aliens vote in their elections, like the state and local elections. As a matter of fact, I'm not even sure it's on the state level. I believe it's just on the local, like, city and county level. But it's like, it begs the question, why? Why would you do that? Why would you want these people voting? They're not supposed to be here. Hello? But anyway, Republican Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton is opening an investigation into reports of organizations possibly registering illegal immigrants to vote in the state. The investigation is detailed in a press release that came out on Wednesday, explaining that investigators from the Texas Attorney General's Election Integrity Unit recently conducted undercover operations to identify potential voter registration of non-citizens in Texas and found that some nonprofit organizations have been located outside Texas Department of Public Safety, or DPS, driver's license offices, operating booths offering to assist in voter registration for persons doing business at the driver's license offices. That's insane. Why would they do this, right? Like, they're offering to register people to vote. Now, from what I understand, in Texas, when you get your driver's license renewed, if you're not registered to vote, or you go to get a driver's license and you're 18 years old or older, you can register to vote at the DMV. Well, that's what we call it. It's the DPS in Texas, but Department of Motor Vehicles is what we call it here in the great state of Louisiana. So, blah. So why would they be doing this, right? Like, you can do that inside the building. Why would there be nonprofit organizations offering to renew driver's licenses in booths right outside the DPS? That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. They're offering the exact same services, registering people to vote. What sense does that make? So they're looking into this, and it appears that they're registering criminal aliens to vote in elections. Now, we know that the HAVV, the Help America Vote Verification, is where they cross-reference registrations with Social Security numbers to figure out if these people are actually citizens voting in elections or whatever. Now, there have been some very anomalous data coming out of the HAVV. It's been outright insane. There's been hundreds of thousands of people getting registered to vote without a Social Security number, right? Or without a picture ID or whatever, blah, blah, blah. And like, lots of them, what's the crazy number is, like, tens of thousands of people are showing up as dead. Like, hang on, how are these people registering to vote? Because that's what it is. It's not cleaning up voter rolls or anything like that. It's new registrations, right? You got millions of them, right? Because they post their stats weekly, and you'll have tens of thousands in a week register to vote. and then thousands of them be dead, or thousands of them don't have a social security number, blah, 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 right? You go through it, you can go check out the website yourself, HAVV, Help America Vote Verification, and you can go state by state and look at all the numbers. It's outright insane. If you're interested in stuff like this, I would highly suggest looking into this. I've actually sent screenshots of some of the data to my congressman, trying to get these people to wake up and pay attention to what's going on with this. I've covered a story a while back about this. It's outright insane. We want some answers. We want to know what is going on with this. Because once again, it's not voter roll cleanup, right? That's not what this is used for. It's used for new registrants. So why is this anomalous data appearing up here like this? It makes absolutely no sense. Like, why are so many people being registered to vote without a social security number, right? We know every American citizen, even some illegals, get social security numbers because they get green cards or whatever, because they give these people jobs, right? Like, it blows my mind. There's just so many illegals in this country, and they're giving them jobs, and it's just crazy to me, and I don't quite understand why these people are just allowed to stay in the country. But let's keep going. This is odd, as U.S. citizens can register to vote while getting a new license or ID, or simply renewing their existing one. In other words, there is no need for these organizations to stand outside of the same offices, offering presumably the same services as a U.S. citizen can easily get inside the official building with the state, unless, of course, they are attempting to attract another target audience, non-citizens. Because of this, the state wants to know what exactly the nonprofits are doing there, and what their true motives are for supposedly offering the same services offered to every U.S. citizen. This is quite insane to me. Texans are deeply troubled by the possibility that organizations purporting to assist with voter registration are illegally registering non-citizens to vote in our elections, Paxton said in a statement. And there is nowhere in Texas that illegals can vote in any election. State, local, or of course they can't vote for federal, but they can't vote in any election in Texas. If eligible, citizens can legally register to vote when conducting their business at a DPS office. Why would they need a second opportunity to register with a booth outside, he asked, explaining that his office is investigating this matter and looking into every credible report we receive regarding potential criminal activity that could compromise the integrity of our elections. This is great work coming from Texas, y'all. This needs to be done in every state, because we know the federal government registers these people to vote, which is insane to me. The federal government, honestly, in my opinion, shouldn't be allowed to register anybody to vote. The federal government is supposed to keep its nose out of elections, because states have the plenary power to run their elections however the hell they want to, right? Like, you would think, though, that they would have some sort of standard, but they don't. Like, the election rules and laws differ vastly from state to state to state. It's quite crazy. And we know from the shadow campaign that we talked about that Democrats went around, hired a bunch of lawyers to get out there and go to state to state to state to try to change the rules and change the laws around voting, especially ballot harvesting, mail-in voting, absentee ballots, the drop boxes, all that garbage back in 2020. They did this in the run-up to the election to quote-unquote save the election, and putting it in their words, it was a conspiracy, a cabal of corporate elites and lawyers working behind the scenes to save the election, folks. That comes straight from Time Magazine's article on this. Yeah, I don't understand what Time Magazine was thinking. These people must be stupid. They put this information out there. It's like, what are you doing? You're giving away the strategy of the Democrat Party. Why? Like, I'm glad they did it. But viewing it from their perspective, that was a very dumb idea, because now Republicans are wise to what Democrats did. Yeah, they changed the rules and laws. Basically, I always frame it like, analogous to a baseball game where you got Democrats and Republicans, right? And the Democrat coach or whatever went to MLB officials right before the game started and said, hey, how about let's change the rules around stealing bases, right? So, and then they didn't tell the Republicans of the rule change. So when the game starts, the Democrats start stealing bases in what used to be an illegal manner. And the Republican coach comes out and he's like, hey, that's fraud. You can't do that. And so the umpire, goes and flips through his little book right there and says, no, as a matter of fact, you can. Look. Just mind-blowing, right? Which explains why Trump did what he did in 2020. Right, that was one of the things that turned me off to Trump, because I was kind of a Trump supporter back in 2020, but after all that crap and after all these indictments came up, I was like, holy crap, he really was corrupt. But what happened is all these indictments start coming in and in and in, and what happened? The classified documents case. I looked into that because that one made no sense to me, and I looked into it, and I'm like, this is BS. It's presidential records, for crying out loud. So then I decided to go and look into all the other indictments. Oh, and come to find out, the classified documents one that I said was BS, that actually got dismissed now, was the only one that had any legitimacy whatsoever. So I am deeply behind Donald Trump these days because of this, because the State Department has been weaponized against Donald Trump and against Republicans. Ever since I started doing YouTube, my eyes have been opened. Ever since I started reading the news, my eyes have been opened, folks. My eyes have been vastly opened to what the federal government is doing. Yeah, not necessarily the Biden administration, although the buck stops with Biden. Right? Or Biden-Harris, if you want to go ahead and put it that way. The buck stops with them. But it's the federal government. It's been weaponized against its own people, the American people. And not just Republicans, by the way, because I read all kinds of news stories constantly. And it's been weaponized against everybody. It definitely does not differentiate between Republican and Democrat. If you get in their way, which, as a matter of fact, we're going to cover on the next story, so stay tuned for that. But if you get in the federal government's way, they're going to come after you, folks. Now, it has been more or less weaponized strongly against Republicans, more strongly than Democrats, but it's been weaponized against the people in general, right? I'm not unwise to that. I'm not naive to that fact that it's not just Republicans, it's pretty much everybody, doesn't matter who you are. If you toe the line for the federal government, you're fine. You're good to go, folks. But if you do not, if you start asking questions, if you're like me and eternally ask why and how, and just simple, curious, one-word questions, yeah, they don't like that very much because they can't explain why they do some of the stuff they do. Paxton added that the Biden-Harris administration brought millions of illegal immigrants into the country, saying, without proper safeguards, foreign nationals can illegally influence elections at the local, state, and national levels. Paxton also reminded everyone that registering to vote as a non-citizen is a crime. As a matter of fact, it is. Any wrongdoing will be punished to the fullest extent of the law, he warned. This is great coming out of here. This issue is not just possibly affecting Americans in Texas. This prompted Rep. Chip Roy to push the Safeguard American Voter Eligibility Act, or SAVE Act, which we covered like a month and a half, maybe 2 months ago. So I don't know if you guys remember that one, which provides safeguards to stop non-citizens from voting in U.S. elections. Roy said there currently are no safeguards to prevent this, despite it already being technically illegal for non-citizens to vote in federal elections. Yes, that is crazy to me. It's illegal for these people to vote, but they put no safeguards in place whatsoever, right? Like, we're just now starting to do this, right? We covered that law in Arizona. Obviously, it got turned down simply because, and I'll explain it right quick, like any new registrations from this point forward, you have to have proof of citizenship. But any before this date, that the Supreme Court ruling on that one, yeah, no, they're not going to check none of that. It's only a partial win. So if you were a criminal alien that registered to vote in Arizona, you can vote in federal elections, folks. Just don't get caught. This is insane to me. Why would they allow for this? So we need safeguards. The SAVE Act passed the House, but guess what, folks? Your democracy-loving Democrats in the Senate they refuse to even look at it. This is just crazy to me. They won't even take it up. I think, personally, I think that should be illegal. Right? Like, if the House passes something, they should be able to somehow compel the Senate to bring it to a vote somehow. I mean, right, like, congressmen and senators in both chambers of the House can compel a vote on the floor in their own respective houses. But I think there needs to be some sort of mechanism to compel the other chamber in the House to vote on certain issues, right? Like, you want to amend it, bring it up for a debate, amend it, do whatever, but they should be compelled to be able to forced to vote for these things, right? Don't just sit on it, just table the bill or whatever it is that's come up. Don't just table it and sit on it, right? That's BS to me. That is outright BS. But, we're getting off on a tangent here. There's a whole, industry built around propping up people here to be here illegally. Roy told Breitbart News Daily in July. So, of course, they're voting. And then, importantly, our own federal government is registering these people automatically through Medicaid, though forced DMV registration under federal law. And, of course, they're registering them, and then they're saying, oh, but they won't vote in federal elections. Don't worry about it, he said. That's the absurdity. You can't even make it up. Federal law has been interpreted to prohibit states from checking to see if you're a citizen, even though technically the law says you must be a citizen, he continued. That's insane, y'all. That is just outright insane. But you get the Democrats out there and say, no, it's illegal. They can't do that. Right? Just the same as nobody gets murdered ever because it's illegal. Nobody ever speeds or runs stop signs or commits larceny, for crying out loud. It's just the most insane logic. And what is even more insane than that is that Democrat voters buy into this because they repeat the talking point online. I get comments all the time of stuff like this. Right? And by the way, comment section, I told you so. RFK Jr. is going to drop out. I know. Sidebar for a second. RFK Jr. is going to drop out Friday. I told you guys. But, sorry, let's keep going. I still got another couple of paragraphs. Shit. We want to keep it simple, so we drafted it to follow existing state laws primarily. So what would change? First of all, nothing immediately changed for people who are already registered. You'd be allowed to go vote. What we would require is for the next registrants, so someone who goes to register to vote tomorrow, like if this bill passed, then they would be forced to show up with a passport, a real ID that's already checking citizenship, or if the system doesn't have that, a driver's license, a photo ID, plus a copy of your birth certificate or your naturalization papers, he said, explaining that there would be other paths that could be taken if the individual could not get their birth certificate. Further, the law would essentially put the rest of the burden on the state, requiring states to clean their voter rolls and ensure that there is a process for making sure that only citizens are registered to vote. That's what we do. We try to make it minimally burdensome, but strong enough to ensure that only citizens vote. He explained, noting that the law would allow each state to determine how it would be best to go through voter rolls. Virginia, he said, made such an effort in 2023, checking against federal databases. It found that 1,500 non-citizens were registered to vote. Texas, he continued, also did something similar a few years ago and found 25,000 non-citizens in the system. Notably, the House passed that bill in a 221 to 198 vote that same month, but only 5 Democrats joined Republicans. And there's a tweet from Senator Mike Lee. SAVE Act passed the House of Representatives. Congratulations to @Chip Roy, who introduced the House version of our bill. Now Senate Democrats need to join us to pass the SAVE or explain why they think non-Americans should be able to vote in American elections. That is right. They should explain that. Why? Oh, but they're not going to do it. It's illegal. Don't forget it's illegal and you can't do it. And nobody ever breaks the law. Right? Like, I mean, we put safeguards in place for people to not commit murder. I mean, there's a possibility you would spend the rest of your life in jail. Right? That's somewhat of a safeguard. That's a deterrent more than a safeguard, right? But we put safeguards for speeding. There's speeding cameras, and they put cops. You could call that a deterrent as well. And we need deterrents to stop people. Like, what in God's name? Like, why would a nonprofit organization want to do something as illegal as registering non-citizens to vote? Right? Like, I'm almost certain, like 100% certain, I would say 99.9% certain that this is going on because of this investigation. Like, I was already 99% certain, but now I'm even more certain of it because we've seen the reports. We know that the federal government is absolutely registering non-citizens to vote, and it's allowed. We've covered those stories where this district or whatever passed laws to allow non-citizens to vote in their elections, right? Criminal aliens voting in local elections. That's just crazy to me, right? That's like you going on vacation and showing up in Barbados somewhere and voting for the mayor of whatever city you show up in. It's like, what? That makes no sense. But, you know, far be it from me to criticize the Democrat Party once again, y'all, but I think I've rambled on long enough on this one, y'all. Y'all let me know what y'all think about all this down in the comment section. How much of a percent do you think that are criminal aliens voting in federal elections? And how much of a percent do you think that this investigation is actually going to find some criminal wrongdoing by these nonprofits? Let me know what say you down in the comment section. And that's all I got for this one. I want to thank everybody for watching. Y'all try to have a good day. Stay legitical. Peace.